Good morning, everyone. My name is Cheryl Adamson. I'm from the Parnell Business Association, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you all this morning. We do invite members from other business associations, such as Newmarket and Uptown. So if any of you came via that invite, you're most welcome, as well as members of the public. So welcome to all, and I'm sure many more people will be joining as we go along. So before I hand over to Josephine, who'll introduce our inspiring speakers for today, I'd like to just mention what we like to do in terms of format is run for about 45 minutes and keep all questions for the end, please. And as you've noted, this is being recorded. So Josephine Rudkin-Binks, over to you, please, to introduce our very nice speakers. Thank you.
Sure, Cheryl. So tēnā koutou.
Josie, we can't hear you.
Maybe we should let Josie know that this
and prosper. In the latest IPCC report, which has hit the news this week, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, in this report, the climate change, it says it's very clear that the time for action is now. As Minister James Shaw this week said, for a country that relies on its climate as much as New Zealand does, then addressing climate change isn't a nice to have, it's really an essential. So it really is now a now or never really kind of dash to the low carbon economy. We've got a great lineup of young talent today, and it's fantastic to see that this next generation of leaders are really serious about sustainability, and they bring many qualities, including enthusiasm and passion, which I'm sure you'll see through their presentations. But more importantly, they challenge the status quo, and for climate change, they know no barriers. So our speakers are all or have been part of the Sustainable Business Network's Now crowd. And the Now crowd is a group of highly motivated, like-minded professionals working on issues that really matter to them. So we're delighted to bring a stellar lineup to you today. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, which is Tori Calver. Tori is Head of Culture and Impact at the Sustainable Business Network. Tori is a mother of two and acutely aware of the challenges our tamariki and mokopuna face in the coming years and the need for this generation to step up to the challenge. At SBN, Sustainable Business Network, she's focused on helping the team achieve and measure collective impact in acting on climate, designing out waste, regenerating nature. A key part of her role is helping upskill businesses in what they need to do, providing practical advice on how to implement the necessary change. So over to you, Tori.
Kia ora. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Tori Calver ho, and really happy to be here today and loved the introduction about being called young. I'm officially a little bit past potentially any age limit of our Now crowd. It's a little bit ageist in the fact that it is really celebrating the young and up and coming, but you know, I'm going to take that, and with Zoom soft lighting, it's a fabulous thing. So I do have a bit of a presentation to share, which I seem to have, with you all. And today I'm going to zoom through, I guess, a bit of like why I'm here speaking with you today. And, you know, there's a lot to share when it comes to sustainability. Touch again a bit around the reason why, but not so much because I think we all are aware of the challenges. And then just to look at, you know, what's ways, if you're not engaged yet, that you can start to kind of get your feet a little bit wet. So first up, I guess a little about me. So this was me for a number of years. Pretty attractive creature, as you can see. You know, I remember as a kid being passionate about the environment, reading the law racks and, you know, being concerned about the state. And then, I don't know, somewhere along the line, I just put my head back into the ground and kind of got on with life and tried to put some of the concerns as a kid I had aside. I worked for a travel and tourism company for a number of years. And, you know, I loved it. I love travel. It's kind of, I think, as Kiwis, it's part of our blood, right? And, you know, my company flew me. I was...
Good morning, Wyman. How are you?
Oh, kia ora. I was the kind of only person based here for a while, and so I got to fly all over the world. So
Welcome to the club.
Might just want to go on.
Is that like you?
Akita, is that you? No, okay.
Kia ora, Alan.
Tuning.
Kia ora, Alan. Could you mute? Thank you.
Is that? There we go. And so, you know, I really kind of enjoyed that time, but over time I started thinking, you know, is it really necessary for us to fly all across the world to meet? Isn't there better ways that we could do this? I was having what you call growing eco-anxiety. It's something that a lot of people suffer from these days, which is really growing concern over the state of our planet and what the future looks like. I also had a couple of kids, and so started kind of transitioning my thought about myself and started looking at what their future looks like. And so I kind of did the only thing a sane person would do, and I quit my job. I did a bit of retraining and upskilling around sustainability, and landed a fabulous job at the Sustainable Business Network, where I now am very purpose-driven, and my head is well and truly out of the sand, and part of my mission is to help others, because I think, you know, with a lot of the news these days, it's very easy to just kind of go, the problem's so big, what can I do? Put your head back in the sand and continue to do what you've always done. So I'm hoping today, it's part of my mission, if your head isn't already out of that sand, or if it's doing what mine did and going in and out, then this is all about, okay, how do we keep it up? Right, okay, now I've lost my, here we go. So who are we? So the Sustainable Business Network, if you haven't heard of us, we've been around 20 years. Our mission is to empower business so that people and nature may prosper. We're focused on three core things. One is systems change. You know, individuals, governments, businesses have to work together. And at the moment, there's a lot of challenges that kind of enables a non-sustainable system. It's quite hard to make the choices. So we kind of look at the bigger picture to see how can we remove some of those obstacles for business in particular. We work in public-private partnerships around designing out waste, acting on climate, and regenerating nature. We also do a lot of upskilling, so a lot of courses, workshops, training, advisory, and webinars such as these. And then, you know, there's a lot of negativity that can come around the stories around climate change. So we try to flip the narrative a little bit and focus on a lot of the positive and the good stuff that doesn't always feature in the news. We've got our 20th Sustainable Business Awards this year as well, which really highlights and promotes those businesses so that other businesses can kind of learn by example. So I always think it's important that when we talk about sustainability, we take a little time to think about what that means in a business context. There is a lot of greenwashing, and sustainability is now an overly used word and often incorrectly claimed by businesses. So literally it means the capacity to endure, but in a business sense, it's one that generates profit while improving societal and environmental conditions. So if you imagine you've got a three-legged stool, one leg is your profit, your economics, the other is your social, and the other is the environment. And the idea is that when all of those three things in balance, you've got a really stable business and a really stable planet and a really stable economy. When you start to kind of put money, for instance, or making money off the back of social and environmental detrimental practices, those other legs get shorter and the whole thing topples over. And that's really the state that we're in now. So in order to be a sustainable business, you need to have your eye across your people, the planet, and as well as making sure you can actually afford to pay those people and continue to operate into the future. So traditionally, businesses have been more in this kind of shareholder value. Think about a lot of the big kids, you know, your number one kind of thing of the CEO was to increase that share value to deliver profits back. So business sits kind of separate to what its connection with the environment and society would be. We're now seeing more of a move into this kind of shared value where you get the crossover and businesses understand the impact that they are having on environment and society, and that, you know, healthy workforce is good for business. But still, it's a bit separate. It's a bit kind of business first. It's a bit things like we're going to hire some people in a corporate social responsibility, but we're not going to embed it all through our business. Where we need to get to and kind of understand is that it's a very interconnected system, and that business is there really to serve society and the environment. So it's constantly giving back, showing that it's at the heart and ideally can enhance the outcomes of where it operates and who it relies on to operate as well. So that's our vision for our kind of sustainable business and a sustainable future. So why is this important? So I am just going to take us a little bit low at the moment to kind of focus on some of the facts that there are and some of the challenges, I would say, that we face. So you've seen a lot of slogans. There is no planet B, big part of the climate protests. Yet we currently are using on global average almost 2 Earths to kind of sustain our lifestyle. We've got a massive consumption and production problem. In New Zealand, we're already over 2 Earths. Now, there's a lot of different figures that float around there. There's one study that shows if we all ate like a G20 country, we would in fact need 7 Earths to operate. So in some ways, we're kind of underestimating exactly how fast we are reaping the resources of this world. Also, so what's our ultimate goal? We need to reduce our emissions by 45%. And that's off, 1990 or 2010 figures, depending on the country. And currently we're estimated to increase by about 14%. So we're not even going backwards. But, we've come together a number of times over the years to say, yes, we absolutely need to reduce emissions, and then business as usual keeps going. And we ultimately need to hit net zero by 2050. So how are we doing? Well, you can see on the left, that's the current kind of daily emissions. We had a recent downscale when COVID first hit, but you can see it didn't take us long for us to kind of pick up business as usual. And we are, as I said, projected to increase. On the right is what we need to do in order to kind of keep that 1.5 degrees within reach. And this is the figure that was agreed in Paris to kind of, enabled by scientists that said, if we want a stable planet that protects as many people as we can, this is our ultimate goal. Current pledges, and we've just had some updates, put us around those kind of 2.4 to 3 mark. But again, most countries aren't on track to meet their pledges, including our one. And we've a long way to go from those pledges to actually what is required for 1.5. And why do we care? What's the difference in a 0.5 degree? There's been a number of reports from the Intergovernmental Panel on climate change. The one just before the one released this week showed those effects on New Zealand and actually went to different parts of New Zealand and said, how much is going to flood, what's our storm and drought's going to look like. And it's not great reading. I'm going to be honest. So we know it's challenging, and between 0.5, if you would like to go to the Great Barrier Reef one day, 70% of those coral reefs are lost by 2100. Under 1.5, they're all gone. Under 2. When we look at that flood risk, one of the IPCC reports shows that 1 in 100 floods, and those kind of strong storm weather systems, we could be looking at yearly. So you imagine what the economic devastation as well as the natural and social capital is around that. Businesses will no longer be able to insure their premises depending where they are. If you've got a beachfront property, it's unlikely that that's going to be affordable to insure in the future. So lots of assets getting lost, and also a lot of public money that needs to go into shoring up things like building walls to try and keep these rising seas out from the surrounding infrastructure. So some challenges ahead, and I just wanted to kind of remind of that. Don't put your head back in the sand, but keep it up. Just of it is a big challenge, and really we're past the point that we can individually say the problem's too big, what can we do? Because we're responsible for telling the businesses and showing up, leading through our businesses, and also telling government what they need to do. So how progressive businesses are acting, and there are some amazing examples, both in New Zealand and globally, and there's a big spectrum. There's ones who are just, you know, really looking at how they're improving their own businesses, but there are also ones who are finding gaps in the market that weren't there before. I wanted to give an example. Well, this is them all pivoting. It's like a bit of humor in these things. Oh, right. That, you know, this is an example. So often I might do a slide where we bash some fossil fuel companies a little bit, talking about how they, you know, actively spend money to stop investment in this space and to stop and move away from fossil fuels. And that's one of the challenges we face. But there are also companies who are taking a step back and are saying, are we in the fossil fuel industry business, or are we in the energy business? And those are the ones who are still going to be around. And those are the ones that we want to support as consumers and as businesses. So Ørsted is an example of that. It used to be called DONG, or Danish Oil and Natural Gas. And this is a statement from its 2020 annual report, where it shows, in a decade, we've transformed our business from being one of Europe's most carbon intensive energy companies to a global green energy leader. We're on track to becoming carbon neutral in our energy generation and operations, making us the first major energy company to transform from fossil fuels and reach net zero emissions. So they've done that, and are still, you know, they've increased their profitability and are now one of the largest producers of kind of wind farm generation in Europe. So it can be done on a big scale, and it can also be done on a small scale. And it sometimes just needs you to really take a step back, look at your business and say, what is it that we're in the business of? So some, you know, New Zealand examples who are looking for that gap in the market, who are taking advantage of the consumers and that kind of growing rise of the eco-consumer. Ones like Future Post. So if you're part of the soft plastics recycling scheme, this is currently where most of that soft plastic ends up. And now they're kind of looking at how they scale it, because they're starting to get a lot more kind of soft plastic coming into that pipeline. So ultimately, you know, this is kind of going back into often a lot of farm fencing as well. So thinking about how you use a wasted resource is actually some way to kind of make a new product. Then we've got a tech, which is, I think, one of New Zealand's great success stories. You know, this was developed by Brianne West, who you know, was so frustrated that you're like, I've got this product that I use in the bathroom that's mostly water. There's got to be a better way to do that, because, you know, that's very water intensive, it's very carbon intensive, and it all comes in these crappy plastic bottles. And, you know, we both think as consumers really frustrated about the amount of packaging. You know, a third of the plastic packaging ends up back in the environment. So it's a big problem. And Brianne was like, well, let's do something about that. And so she changed the chemical nature of a product we were so used to in liquid form. And now it's gone global. By their calculation, they've saved about 20 million plastic bottles from ever kind of going into production. And also you can see they're now impacting and affecting other businesses. So you've got a lot of these main global brands who are actually doing bars now for kind of body products. So again, lots of innovation coming out from this wonderful country of ours, and I think we can do so much more. So why, other than the fact that it's a good thing to do, and we all need to jump on this bandwagon, what's in it for you kind of individually as a business? So number one is you are going to connect with a wider customer base. And on the right here is some stats from the Better Futures report, which shows 66% of people across 20 markets believe it's important for brands to be committed to making our society better. 74% warn that the companies will lose their trust unless they focus on this. And 87% would like companies to kind of address the environmental situation. There's Consumer NZ has done some surveying as well, which definitely shows people are putting kind of their money where their mouth is and will spend more on a more environmentally friendly product as well, and are actively trying to avoid products with too much packaging, for example. That then connects in with number 2, which is around increasing your market share. So why cut off a strong customer base? And you may already be getting some questions around what you're doing in this space, but it is really important to kind of be transparent and open and share that journey with your customers. And then you'll find sometimes a customer base you didn't even know was there, and it's a way to kind of have an edge over your competitors. Because what I'd like to say, this is something that businesses are putting at the top of their agendas. It still isn't. So if you put that foot forward now, you will definitely be in the running to kind of have a point of difference. Number 3, reduce costs. So this is one that will often happen through kind of putting in green initiatives. It might not necessarily reduce costs in the short term, but it will reduce them in the long term. So things like replacing your lighting with LED lighting. We did a case study and a number of case studies for our climate action toolbox, which I'll show shortly. And saw printing showed that they had saved about 500,000 over 10 years kind of using these green initiatives. Often one of the things you'll find is you won't necessarily buy as much stuff, or you'll start to buy secondhand. So there's also those ways that you can reduce your costs as a business. Number 4, and I'd almost put this at number 1, is providing your business's employees with strong purpose. So I think we're going to hear from Maddie and Olly, and you'll see that the younger generation is coming up, and more often than not, they really care about this, and they want to work for a business that shows they care as well. A lot of the kind of Deloitte did a global survey in 2020 that showed people were willing to give more time. They were also willing to be paid less money if they connected with a company's purpose. I see this a lot with people coming to SBN. People will often take a pay cut because we're in the not-for-profit versus the corporate, but ultimately they're so much happier as well, and they kind of are like, oh my god, I just love working somewhere that cares and has strong purpose. And this is also something that will help to connect with your customers when you kind of say, Ateek got a lot of customers because they were like, we're in this to save the planet and change things up. And so they immediately connected with those customers and with their employees. And then ultimately, we are now in the state that it's part of risk and and governance and long-term success. So banks are now required to report on the climate risk in their portfolio, which means they're probably less inclined to lend out to those businesses who are having a lot of negative impact. So just really important to think about how you shore this up for the future. Okay, speeding through. So what actions can you and your business take today? So number 1, understand your emissions and take action. So just a quick kind of review here of what a typical activity for an individual, which also would translate to a kind of a small to medium business, can look like. So you can kind of understand, if you're a business that does a lot of travel, how does that compare to kind of other parts of your operations? So your waste generally is a low footprint, but something that's really obvious to your employees and something that you can make immediate changes on, like putting in a compost bin, making sure you collect your soft plastics and have someone to take those to a nearby outlet that will take them. Lots and lots of really kind of tangible things you can do in that space. And we have a lot of ideas in our workshop. Your energy use, employees don't love being told to turn off lights to save money, but they might react a bit better to, what are ways we can reduce our energy and reduce our footprint. The car. So if you're a business that has a lot of car travel, this is the difference between a petrol car and an electric car. Of course, chopping both of those is things like biking and walking and public transport. So what's your opportunity to switch, for instance, to shared vehicles, to look at other ways to incentivize staff to get to work. Company in Nelson just started paying people $5 a day if they biked, because that was the equivalent of what they were paying for their parking for a car. So think about kind of some fun ways you can get your staff involved as well, and how you might look to kind of reduce any kind of work travel that's happening by car. Now, this is always a controversial one. Don't get between a person and their food, but you will see a increasing trend towards plant-based eating and vegetarianism. And this is just something to think about if you do events, if you're having interactions, then how can you maybe have just veggie options or offer some plant-based milks? How do you kind of start to think about how you promote different styles of eating at those events and within your office as well? And then ultimately, flights. Anyone who has done a personal carbon footprint will know as soon as you get on a flight, it all blows up. So again, with things like Zoom, with things like Google Meet, is there a way that you can reduce the flights you're needing to take as a business? Now, if you're completely overwhelmed, don't know where to start, that is why we've developed the Climate Action Toolbox. This sits on the Ministry of Business, so it's open source, it's free. It's been set up with some wonderful businesses like BNZ and ICA, who are keen to kind of help their customers on this journey. It starts through a very simple assessment, and then it helps you identify ways to reduce your footprint. In about a month's time, there's also going to be a free calculator on there so that you can actually calculate, what the emissions you're having and start to set targets to reduce them. Number two, which I think, and there's only 3 of these, by the way, number 2 is I want you to start thinking circular. And this is because currently we are very much a take, make, waste. If you think we're currently using about 2 of Earth's resources, but we've only got 1, 91% of what we take from the Earth is wasted. So if you think we, for instance, take, whether it's plants or fossil fuels to burn to make a nice plastic container for us to have our takeaway lunch, we then use that for about 5 to 8 minutes, and then we throw it away. We might be throwing it away in the bin because that's what's available, or it's not recyclable in New Zealand. But it's very much, kind of very short space of time. There's a pretty scary stat that says all the coffee cups in the world are enough when stacked on top of each other to go to the moon 85 times and back, and that's in 1 year. So when you're kind of thinking about getting that coffee next time, maybe take your reusable cup. We want to be more part of the solution than the problem going forward, and our individual actions really do make a difference. So the bottom line is that any product designed to be used for a matter of minutes and then thrown away is just not a sustainable option, regardless of what that product is made from, because it's the single use that is the biggest problem. So it's okay, there is a solution. This is when I want you to start thinking circular and how your business operates. So this is where we take, but it could be that we're taking from actually a waste product. So if you think about something like Future Post, that's taking from a waste product versus a virgin product. Then you're producing, you're using, and you are keeping that product in circulation for as long as possible. You're reusing, you're repairing, and then ultimately only at the end of the life, when there's no more use, would you recycle, and so it goes back into the system. So you're designing out waste and pollution, you're keeping products and services in circulation, and you're regenerating nature. There are some great resources around this on both our website, but also Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which has a number of ways that you can start interacting, start thinking about how this would work. So it means things like buying secondhand products for your business, asking when you buy something, will that company take it back at the end of its life? Maybe if you are an organization who sells products, how do you enable that service for the customer as well, and say, yeah, we'll take it back. We want to, or hey, we'll partner with a business that repairs things as well. How do you make that easy? How do you keep everything in circulation? And number 3, because it's a pretty overwhelming space, it's really challenging to make the right decisions sometimes. Consumer Insight showed that about 70% of people don't know what is the more sustainable product because of that influx of greenwashing. So the more you understand about what people are doing in your industry, the better you'll be able to build that knowledge and make sure that when you are making change and choices, it's the right one for your business. So use the Climate Action Toolbox. There's heaps of free online resources. I really encourage you to come to our website. It's all geared around learn and take action. And there's lots of kind of amazing courses and things you can sign up to as well. Just finishing up on a quote from David Attenborough, because this, I think he's a pretty inspiring, amazing man. If working apart we're a force powerful enough to destabilize our planet, surely working together we're powerful enough to save it. In my lifetime, I've witnessed a terrible decline. In yours, you could and should witness a wonderful recovery. Ka kite.
Thank you, Tori. That was awesome. Really good. And actually, interestingly, future posts that you mentioned are also now recycling medical masks as well, which obviously we've got billions floating around in New Zealand and making those into fence posts too. So they're a great example. So thank you. We're going to keep questions at the end, hopefully if we have time. So our next speaker I'd like to introduce is Maddison Baker. Maddison joined the Now crowd while she was actually working at Air New Zealand as a network strategy analyst. And as part of her role, she was required to work on a range of business cases for proposal to the exec team, anything from ranging from electric aircraft to new ports where New Zealand might be flying into. And sustainability was commonly positioned as a sideline and a significant portion of those projects. And she thought it was a huge missed opportunity. So Maddison's involvement in the Now crowd equipped her with the knowledge and confidence that she needed to bring sustainability to the forefront for a large portion of these business cases. She also worked with the Now crowd to put on an event called Developing Your Sustainability Voice to encourage others to find ways to articulate the importance of this issue into key business decisions. She's since left Air New Zealand and started her own business called News. And this is a kitchen knife manufacturing business. And one of the pillars of News is to use sustainable materials to produce the products, but also to transition her whole manufacturing model eventually to zero emissions. In regards to this seminar, Maddison's going to be talking about her experience within Air New Zealand and her experience with starting up a startup business, but with sustainability at the forefront. So I will hand over to you, Maddison, and you've got about 10 minutes. So apologies, but no, it's going to be awesome.
Awesome. Thank you very much for the lovely introduction. I will just share my screen. Hopefully this will. Says there is a warning for me. Do I have permission?
Warning might just be saying you've got low bandwidth, but
yeah, it just says I don't have permission to share my screen. Sorry about that.
I have given everyone permission to share, but I'll try again.
Oh, this might work. Oh.
If not, we have a copy. So,
okay, I might. Ah, there we go. This should work now.
There we go.
Right. Maybe we'll just go to full screen. Cool. Can everyone see that? Yep. Awesome. So thank you very much for the lovely introduction. I'll just get that one. I'm Maddison Baker, as I was already introduced, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Noosh, a new business that's about to start up. Cool, so I'm just going to get into it. Many of us never thought that our businesses, roles or careers would follow alongside such a pivotal point in human history. The effects of our past actions on grandchildren's future is becoming an ever more relevant conversation. We began to learn about climate change and the impact we could have as individuals to reverse it. We started to swap out single-use coffee cups for stylish ones. We stopped using plastic straws and instead opted for cardboard, and we saw a way with our plastic shopping bags. Now, the impact of each of these small daily decisions is cumulative and has collectively created a positive impact on our environment in favour of a cleaner, greener future. However, change does not stop once we leave our homes. There's an even greater impact to be generated in our workplaces. With over 70%, huge number of global greenhouse gas emissions created by only 100 companies, it's clear an even greater impact can be made within our businesses. When I started in New Zealand as a graduate engineer only a few years ago, so I'm very new to business, I never thought sustainability would play such a big role in my future career. It wasn't long before I began to see firsthand the impact of my micro daily decisions on the environment. Choosing to minimize waste in the refit of aircraft interiors, looking for options to recycle and reuse components otherwise sent to landfill, and opting for more environmentally friendly materials in future fleet designs. As an employee for a large company, the prospect of learning and integrating sustainability into my projects seemed daunting. But luckily, a colleague of mine recommended I head along to an event hosted by the Now Crowd. As previously discussed, it's an SBN initiative created for highly motivated and like-minded young professionals to work together on issues of sustainability. I think I'm going to promote SBN a lot in my talk today because definitely have helped me on my journey a lot. I felt like immediately my eyes were opened after attending a few of their great events and seminars. The Now Crowd is a mix of industries which collectively brainstorms to solve issues each of us pose from our own roles. My passion and motivation to make a difference, no matter how small at times, quickly grew with the support of the Now Crowd and the excellent leadership at Air New Zealand. When I moved into my role as a network strategy analyst early 2021, I was able to continue to pursue this passion. My role involved working on long-term strategies for the business, which ranged from new ports we'd one day fly into to the future of electric aircraft. As part of planning the domestic strategy for the next 5 years, I sought out a project that allowed me to work alongside the sustainability team to generate a calculator which determined the business's future profit as it would be impacted by the rising cost of jet fuel, sustainable aviation fuel mandates, and carbon tax. Painting the picture of sustainability in a way the leadership could understand the long-term impact of inaction. Now, I understand as an employee, especially one that's new to business, it can be difficult to see how environmental initiatives can be implemented into day-to-day operations and projects. I challenge you to rethink your metrics, to rethink your metrics for success. Generating profit, minimizing cost should all sit with equal opportunity to equal priority to reducing environmental impact. If you're unsure where to start or how to begin thinking about integrating this metric, I found attending events, much like this one, key to opening the door. Connecting with like-minded individuals and starting the conversation will open many doors you previously wouldn't even have thought existed. Simply spending time, even just Googling about what other businesses are doing that are leading the way within your industry, as it can trigger ideas about how you can begin guiding your projects towards positive environmental action. No matter our roles or positions within a business, we all play a part in the future strategy and the company's direction. Choosing to just put the conversation on the table is already a step in the right direction. And then took a complete 360 pivot at the end of 2021. And I made the tough, scary decision to leave my role at Air New Zealand and pursue a new challenge as a business owner. Growing up, I spent a lot of time around my dad's knife manufacturing workshop during school holidays, helping to assemble handles, cutting thread off leather sheaths, and crawling around collecting brass rivets off the floor. Which my dad would remember very clearly. At the time, I merely saw it as a great way to earn some pocket money. However, little did I realize the underlying passion for engineering that started to form under the surface. During the first half of 2020, the months many of us will never forget, I decided to move back in with my parents to escape the chaotic city life. And this is when me and my dad started to talk a lot about the future of the knife manufacturing industry and the importance of sustainability within his business. This is when the idea of Nuge was formed. So my dad specializes in hunting and fishing knives, however, has never ventured far into the kitchen knife industry. I saw an opportunity to rethink an industry which was dominated by energy-intensive processes and materials. A kitchen knife is a basic tool that most of us probably would have used today to prepare our breakfast. Otherwise, we will likely use this evening to create dinner for our families. As discussed by Tori as well, there's a great impact to be had by choosing what you put on your plate, but equally an opportunity by choosing how you create this food. I wanted to work alongside my dad to create a product that lasted a lifetime, one that wasn't thrown out after just 20 years of use and instead stayed in your kitchen from the moment you set it up until when you would eventually pass it on to your children. We created a durable product that used recycled and sustainably sourced materials, one that offset emissions that have not yet shifted to renewable and created little to no waste in the process. Whether you own a business, creating skincare, kitchenware, clothing or jewelry, the goal should always be to bring value to others' lives without hindering the lives of future generations. I knew that I didn't want to be a part of the problem and instead wanted to be a part of the solution. I thought about the true value of the product, which is just creating a great knife for the kitchen, and stripped away the excess to minimize its environmental impact, adding value without adding the weight of the production processes and the materials to our customers. Climate Action Toolbox, again, giving props to that. I found the resources available through the SBM website immensely helpful. The Climate Action Toolbox allowed me to create a simple business plan that guided me towards selection of sustainable materials, waste minimization, and carbon offsetting. It's a really useful resource for anyone that doesn't know where to begin. And it just kind of steps you through a basic kind of list of tips and tricks and resources that you can use to get started on this. Our purpose is to create truly great knives. Profit is simply a means to keep fulfilling this purpose. I want our customers to buy a knife for life, not to end up in landfill within a number of years. So if that means that one day we go out of business because homes around New Zealand or the world have a quality tool that lasts, then I'll be happy. It's the right thing to do for our environment and it's the right thing to do for our customers. So if you take anything away from my quick run through presentation today, it's that whether you're an employee or a business owner, you're given the opportunity every day to make a difference. Rethink the status quo of daily operations and project management, attend events like this one, research about the many ways in which you can create a positive difference in the world through business, and get clear on your goals. Challenge the mentality of it's the way it's always been, which I heard a lot in engineering, and instead look for the right thing to do. And as a shameless little plug, I'd like to introduce you to the team behind Nuge. This is me wearing the same dress actually in the photo. My dad, who has been in the industry for 40 years, is the brains behind the knife manufacturing business and co-founder with me. And my younger sister is an excellent knife maker and she's helping produce and make all the Nuge knives. And then finally, if you'd like to follow along the journey prior to launch of our first Nuge knife, then we'd love to have you join the family, literally family. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook and keep an eye on our website, which is going live very soon. If you have any questions or would like to reach out, you can also contact me via email. Thank you for your time today. I hope you have a wonderful day and mā te wā.
Thank you, Maddison. That was wonderful, and good luck with Nuge, and how amazing that you get to work with your dad and your sister. Well, I'm in awe of that, so thank you. Last but definitely not least, I'd like to introduce our third speaker, which is Olly. Olly is a sustainability consultant at Oxygen Consulting and also a Now Crowder. Previously part of DB Brewery's sustainability team, Olly led its annual GRI standard sustainability reporting. He managed DB Brewery's carbon inventory development and carbon zero pathway and pioneered its waste reduction and plastic elimination strategy. Olly has a Bachelor of Engineering with an honours from University of Canterbury, where he was also the Students Association Sustainability Officer, implementing new practices to reduce waste and to increase waste diversion at events and in the campus cafes. At Oxygen Consulting, Olly is focused on helping organisations optimise all aspects of their business for sustainable, enduring value creation, offering expertise including carbon management, materiality assessments, strategy developments and sustainability reporting. So I'll hand over to you, Olly.
Great, awesome. Thank you for the intro. And I have to say it's a pleasure to be here alongside some great speakers. So just a quick thing about what I'm going to cover. So when Caro emailed me a couple of weeks ago asking to speak, she said, I'd love to hear about how you influence sustainability as a young person. And so sort of following on from Tori's great intro about why and what you could be doing, I thought I'd share some things about what you can be doing, and who and what you should be doing and sort of how to get started. So I'll just check my screen up. So I guess the first thing to know, and one awesome thing is that at Oxygen Consulting, we do a lot of work with SBN. And so a lot of the graphs and figures that I'll present are part of our annual survey that we do. Oxygen Consulting runs for the Sustainable Business Network and Sustainable Business Council around the sustainability profession. So first up, basically, I want to say who works in sustainability? Well, if you look at the age and gender range, it's everyone. So literally anyone on this call is going to fit into these things. So I'd say that the first thing to be is don't think you have to be of a particular age, gender, or I guess education background to get started. And sort of moving into what background, it's a little bit of a coincidence that Maddie and I both have a Bachelor of Engineering, but if you have a look at what the backgrounds of people that have done tertiary education and moved into sustainability, they're across everything. And I think this really speaks to the fact that sustainability is a wide-ranging topic. It touches literally everything that we're involved in. And so it's equally as important to have someone on the front line like Maddie doing modeling of the flight paths that Air New Zealand is doing, to having someone in the back end looking at the legal agreements around reducing your carbon or your supplier agreements. And then moving over here to the right, what are the key methods of role capability development? This is something that Maddie just touched on, but most people, you can see, learn whilst doing it. So basically get stuck in and figure it out. And the next best is networking opportunities or professional membership, such as being part of SBN. So basically, and I certainly can agree with Maddie that a lot of my knowledge or a lot of the things that you see out there and think, man, we should be doing that, come through talks just like this. And there's a quote just there that mentoring is crucial and on-the-job learning. It's not really, there's no particular sustainability degree available in New Zealand. So the next best is just doing it. And then which businesses work in sustainability? Well, again, it's literally everybody, and it should be everybody. I think Tori alluded quite nicely to the fact that everyone needs to be doing this if we're going to make a good difference. But every industry is represented in here, and both across different organizational types. So if you're sitting there right now and you've listened to Tori's presentation and thought, man, this would be great, but I'm not sure how it applies to us because of our ownership model, because of our board structure, rest assured that there's plenty of other businesses in the same boat as you, and in the same sector where you can sort of steal with pride from what they're doing. So with that in mind, how did I get into sustainability? So I studied at UC at the University of Canterbury, a Bachelor of Mechanical Engineering, and here's a couple of really nerdy photos of some projects that I completed that I could find. So this on the left is a plastic shredding machine, which is actually one of the future post machines that we were testing. And then this here is a fatigue failure of a helicopter. And sort of through mechanical engineering, you learn that actually a huge impact you can have is in the things that the things that you work on and the things you design and the systems that you create. And that sort of, I guess, started the fire for me. And then I was voted onto the student board for the student association. And through that, I had this amazing ability, this opportunity where we ran events, and the organization is a really large organization that runs all cafes, events, any student support services, and has like a $12 million turnover. And I found myself on the board representing the sustainability portfolio. So we did some really cool things there around reducing waste, particularly on cafes on the campus, and influencing student behavior. University of Canterbury is a campus of 25,000 FTE. So the impact opportunity is massive. And then after that, I landed a grad role at DB Breweries and ended up in the sustainability team there, which was a really great 2 years. And again, it's a great opportunity. I guess when I started, I wasn't necessarily pushed into any particular place, but just as a quick range of things that you can work on in sustainability, it's not just reducing your carbon footprint. Admittedly, I did do quite a lot of that, but it's also things like checking the way that the packaging is working and trying to reduce waste by reducing the number of rejects. We did some things like right weighting the bottle, so reducing the amount of glass in a Heineken bottle whilst preserving the strength. And then other sustainability sort of outside the environmental realm, such as this is one of our great campaigns around reducing drink driving. And then earlier this year, I've started at Oxygen Consulting, which we are a specialist sustainability firm. And we're really focused on how you can integrate sustainability into your business and create value without compromising on sustainability. So now that you know that you could be the person in your business that's doing it, how do you actually do the influencing, and how do you make your business and the decision makers take notice of sustainability? This is a sort of a great photo of what it feels like at times, where the business is sort of staring slowly into a disaster, and you might feel like this guy down here that's got a tiny little excavator trying to make a big impact. So first up, I think the key is understand what makes your business tick. So what motivates your business and your decision makers? And you can see here from our annual survey, so this is what sustainability professionals have responded that their motivations are, their organizational motivations are for doing sustainability. So you can see a lot have, especially in New Zealand, I think it's quite high that we think we need to do it. It's for the better good, and that's great. And then moving down, actually, if you read this quote here, 54% of CFOs identified that it's a competitive or reputational advantage. That's the top driver of sustainability action in their organization. And that is so key that right now, if you move on sustainability, it's a huge marketing tool. And just as Tori touched on, not only for your consumers, but also for your employees, for getting the values both at home and in the workplace aligned. I think the other thing to note here is that sustainability often has quite a good cost saving benefit. A lot of the things that we do that are carbon intensive are quite costly. So there's good opportunity to move some money out of the bottom line. So where can I help? If I am a person and I have listened to this talk and I think, man, I really want to help, where can I help? So the first thing is measuring and understanding. So this could just be having a look around your industry. What's happening? What are the trends? What is everyone else doing? What could we copy? Help to reduce impact. Yeah, like I just said, the sustainability often means that you make cost savings, and that's one thing that can really drive, particularly your CFO. So if you can see some efficiencies, it might be, hey, we can fly a little bit less, or I think we can reduce the waste that we're creating. That's a great way of getting something across the line. And then don't forget about internally what getting this value across the line to your peers, your colleagues, your employees. So visible changes make a huge difference. So this is a picture of some great bins. It's called Method Recycling. They're a New Zealand company. And so many businesses that act on sustainability, this is one of the places they start, because they sort of signal to their employees that they're serious about sustainability. We're not going to have all of our waste mucked up in the office, even though it's a little bit more of a hassle for our cleaner, or you've got to take a moment to sort out your rubbish. And then tell the story. Particularly internally, you must sort of get people on board with the journey. And one of the things I think is that you can't assume that people know a lot about sustainability. So starting to sort of give the awareness, and once they have awareness, they can't help but see it everywhere. So on the flip side, if you're listening to this and you think, well, man, I would love our business to do this, and I wish that someone in our business could lead this, how can I empower some people in my business to start working on this? So here's some sort of barriers that came up in our annual survey of sustainability professionals. And one of the key things is that it starts at the top, from how you embed sustainability into your organization. So you can see some bad quotes here about things that aren't doing well. People hate, and I think we all sort of reflect on this, is that you don't want greenwashing to be in your business. And so you have to understand how you can weight it against your other targets, and particularly against profit. If it's one thing that just takes a back seat, if things get busy, then you'll really quickly lose your focus on sustainability, and you'll lose your employees from working on that. And then on the other side here, we see the adequate resourcing is important. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're investing a huge amount of money, but if there's a couple of good ideas, or if there's something that people sort of, it makes sense to be doing, if you don't close the value action gap by resourcing it or budgeting for the initiative, then again, they just fall away. And often what we see with businesses that we work with is that they've gone through and they know what they need to do, but they've never quite managed to get the budget across the line. And this is one thing where you sort of, the cost of acting today is a lot lower than the cost of acting in 2 years or 3 years. And you can see here from our survey that only less than 30, like around 25% of businesses feel that they are highly resourced in sustainability. So one thing there is that just allowing people to take a little bit of time in their role to work on sustainability can be hugely empowering as well. And finally,
sorry, Olly, you're doing finally. I was just going to say we've probably only got about 1 minute left. So
yeah, don't be afraid to speak up. I think particularly as a young person, and Maddie will relate to this, is that you often feel like you're sort of speaking as a grad or a person early in their business career to your CEO or your CFO about things, and that can feel really scary. And the flip side of that is that as a CEO or CFO, giving time to work on this is really important, particularly for young people who are super value driven. And here you can see this is the balance of what most people end up doing in sustainability around influencing and implementing. So even though it's frustrating, you will find that most of your time is taken up by influencing sustainability in your organization rather than actually doing the doing. And with that, hopefully everyone feels greatly empowered to work on sustainability. So thanks very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Olly. And thank you again, Tori and Maddie as well. So that was great. We have recorded the webinar, so it will be available. And so anyone wanting those links will have those. So we'll be circulating that with you. So thank you. And apologies, we ran out of time for questions. But if you do have any, feel free to send them through and we'll make sure you get a response. So Marty, wow.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Inohara.
Inohara, thanks.